Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day two. Appreciate those of you that joined us yesterday or watched the recording last night. And today we're going to cover our CGA rules officials policies, and we'll also cover rules 5, 6, and 20, which pertain to our duties as part of the committee and running the tournaments. So we'll get started with some quick introductions. All right, we'll do our introductions. Our staff and board, I think, met most people yesterday. Anyone you didn't see yesterday, you will see today. There we go. So Greg Norris is our president, entering his second year. Jack Nance, our executive director, our fearless leader. Yesterday, you heard from Rusty Harder, our director of rules and competitions. And today, you'll hear from Jason Cox, our director of youth development. Yesterday, we had Maggie Watts, our director of women's golf, and Chris Say, director of men's golf, present. And then probably met me or got a whole bunch of emails from me. The tournament manager, as well as Brandon Hood and Tom Roth, also tournament managers. Madison Balfe is our new director of communications and marketing. Greg Kelly, our director of course rating and membership. Doug Hardesty, our director of GIN and IT operations. And Tom Johnson, director of course rating and GIN support. Bill Anderson is our on-staff agronomist, and Kim Jett, our office manager. Make sure we get everything done that we need to get done. Especially if you played, you probably talked to Kevin Haraz, Victoria Johnson, our tournament administrators, and Barb Hanlon, our administrative assistant. So we said it a bunch yesterday. We'll say it every time we talk to you all. Thank you very much for all that you've done for the CGA and for golf, the game of golf overall. We were reminded last year about how much you actually do. We had to pick up all of the tasks that you usually do that we had to do on tournament day. So appreciate all the time you give, and we're looking forward to much more normal 2021 tournament season, hopefully, and see you all a lot more often than we did last year. So our rules for training. Today, everyone will be muted except for the speaker. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll get to you at the next question slide, which are at the end of each rule and kind of periodically through the presentation. You can also post your question in the chat box. If a question comes up in the chat box that you know the answer to, good to hear that, but please don't answer the question in the chat box. Just wait till we get to the next question slide and we talk about it. So that we don't have side conversations going on. So quickly, I'll talk about our rules officials expectations. We do have, I think, probably 8 to 10 new officials this year, joining us live or watching. So good for them and a good reminder for everybody. So we'll provide you with a shirt, hat, rules officials name badge, and the USGA rules books that you need to learn the rules and to do your job. We provide an annual thank you gift for all the time that you have given us over the previous year. You will receive tournament information for all the events that you sign up for from the official in charge, the CGA staff member in charge of that event, approximately 3 to 7 days from the tournament. And we understand that from time to time you'll sign up for an event and something will happen that your schedule changes or something comes up that you won't be able to be there. And we totally understand that. Just let us know as soon as you can so we can change the assignments, but please don't feel guilty. We understand that things come up. So I mentioned the annual gift. This year we were doing it virtually, of course. So we had everyone choose one of the 3 gift options as they registered. We're going to do all that ordering tomorrow. I think I spoke with a few yesterday. Make sure we are on the same page for which gift you want to order. If you still need to change your selection or want to make sure that I have what you picked correctly, let me know. We'll order those all tomorrow. They will arrive at our office and we'll kind of package them up, either hand deliver them to those of you that are in the area, bring them to your next event, or get them in the mail to you. But it's going to take probably 6 to 8 weeks for the whole process. So please be patient. We didn't forget you. But if you have any questions along the way, just let me know and I'll let you know how we're doing. We also have our Rules Officials Facebook group going. one of our goals for this year is to be more engaged in that. We'll post the information that we put into emails to send to you, also post it on the Facebook page. Try and use video from USGA events or PGA Tour events or LPGA Tour events that highlight the rules. And I think that's the best way I learn is seeing a video of something I can recognize. I think a lot of other people are the same way. So we'll continue to do that and just stay engaged with you all that way. So any expenses that you incur while volunteering for a CGA event are tax deductible if you do your taxes that way. The CGA does not reimburse for any education, travel, or tournament-related expenses. We always provide lunch at any CGA event, including any USGA qualifiers. That's always, we'll either have a tab going and we'll let you know over radio or cell phones for most of the year this year that, we can grab lunch at the turnhouse or we can grab lunch in the grill room, whatever it is. Or if we have a player lunch going that day, we'll just grab from the player lunch pile. We do provide our annual rules training seminar, and any information on USGA and CGA rules of golf seminars, you're welcome to join any of the seminars that we put on for the public. And we always try to keep you informed about when the USGA Rules School is coming up for the year. We have special study resources. Some of our rules officials actually put together study resources that you'll see on the resource page that we'll get to in a second. So appreciate all the special things that you all put together for us. But unfortunately, we still can't provide special golf or tournament entry privileges, just kind of separate buckets of the CGA. So can't do that still. So our expectations for you, like I said, we understand things come up. And if you can't make a tournament, just let us know. But if we are expecting you, then we'd like you to be there on time and to attend the tournaments that you signed up for. To be dressed neatly and present yourself in a professional manner. We'll talk a bit more today about you being the face of the CGA, and a lot of times players don't even realize that you all are not staff members, or they think you work at the CGA. So be that face of the CGA, because a lot of times you're seeing the players more often than we are. So professional attire is a white CGA shirt. For men, white CGA shirt, hat, and khaki, navy, or gray pants or slacks. No shorts, please. And for women, a white CGA shirt, hat, and khaki, navy, or gray pants, shorts, or skirts, excuse me. So we have a picture of some well-dressed and properly dressed rules officials. Give you an idea. So like I said, please be, and some points, the face of the CGA. When you're the starter, you're the first person players are seeing in the morning. Get us off to a good start with them. Always be courteous to the host facility staff, in the golf pro shop, the superintendents, anyone in food and beverage. We're guests for the day. And there's times where it takes us a while to find host sites, and we're competing with all kinds of different members, public, other golf associations for host sites. So anything we can do to be remembered as great guests will help us when we're looking for courses for the next year. Listen to the rules officials, listen to the official in charge for all rules assignments and instructions, and work together like as a team throughout the day. We are called a committee for a reason. So anytime you can cover for somebody, if somebody needs to run in for something or they need help on a hole, whatever you can do to help out and work as a team. So our rules officials webpage should look familiar to you. We have the USGA resources that I spoke about, the third section down there. One thing I wanted to mention, especially for those of you that are new to learning the rules, you'll see a lot of mentions to 2019, and it's not because we haven't updated our links. Periodically, the USGA and the RNA will update the rules, and in 2019 there were a lot of significant rule changes. So you'll see some mentions to the past, what it was like, or you'll hear people that have learned the rules in the past talk about the differences. So that 2019 was a big turning point in learning the rules. So that's why a lot of the things will mention 2019 or significant changes. So we'll talk about registering to officiate a tournament. It's basically the same way as how you signed up for today and yesterday's seminars. You'll register on the CGA website using your USGA TM account. You must be identified as a rules official, which I think everyone is. If you can't see the schedule, let me know and I'll add you to the group. It depends how you can sign up for your schedule however you like. We have people who map out their entire year at the beginning of the year so that they know where they're going to be. We have people who kind of wait until it gets closer so that they know more about their schedule. However you want to do it, you'll get a confirmation email when you sign up, and that'll allow you to look at all the events you have signed up for in the future. And we do have instructions on that rules officials page that I just showed you. So the link there is that second one, rules officials tournament online tournament registration will take you to our schedule. It'll look like this. So the first one, or the third one down, the first one that was open was our rules officials training, and then we'll have a sign up portal for every event that we're looking for an official below that, and you can scroll out throughout the entire year for that. We are going to have the Carolinas Amateur be invitation only again this year. It'll be the only one, so everything else will be open to anybody. And more information will be provided to those officials as those that we'd like to invite as we get closer to that event. And wanted to mention quickly our senior rules officials program. I think probably a few on here. So throughout the year, the CGA receives requests from different golf associations, college golf programs, anyone that's looking for qualified rules officials throughout the year. So it's an optional program that we created to make sure that we have rules officials that are qualified with expert rule status via the USGA testing, as well as have worked in enough of our events that we feel comfortable putting you out there. At a lot of these events, you're going to be the only one. There'll be a couple people on a rules committee. Some of these events you're going to be the only one there. So we just want to make sure everyone feels comfortable before they get to that event. Some organizations will pay. They'll pay a travel stipend or a hotel stipend. Some do not, but that information will all be in the senior rules official email that you'll get. And again, it's not a requirement. It's just a separate optional program that you can apply to and join to separate from that. So it provides us with a level of a certification program, and it helps us recommend rules officials that we feel are comfortable and know are comfortable at that level of what they're going to be looking for. We have 42 senior rules officials currently. You get a little bit different name badge. It will say senior rules official on the bottom. And like I said, we'll get those periodic email alerts whenever I get an email in from an outside organization asking for rules official. I'll kind of put it into a little profile and send it out to you all. And then you'll contact that organization directly if you're interested. So qualifications, you have to have attended a USGA PGA rules or workshop in the last 4 years and scored 75 or higher on the 100 question test or 70 or higher on the 80 question test, and worked at least 5 CGA tournament days in the last year. So that includes TIGA, and attended the CGA rules officials training seminar within the last 4 years. So USGA events, qualifiers in North Carolina count, and South Carolina do count, even if they are conducted by the South Carolina Golf Association. South Carolina Golf Association events themselves do not count towards that 5-day minimum. So we use a yearly approval. So the other option you can use is if you're a USGA committee member and have scored 90 or higher on the 100 question test, you can apply. There's an application form on that rules officials website you can fill out and send over to me. No cost to apply, and again, it's optional. And just quickly for the current senior rules officials, given that we had limited availability last year, we have waived the 5-day tournament minimum. We are planning on using, assuming things are continue trending the way they do, using the 5-day minimum for this year. But if you still do not feel comfortable working this year and want to stay in the program, let me know, and we'll see if we can work something out. All right, I will hand it over to Jason Cox, who's our Director of Youth Development, and he'll talk more about the duties once you are actually at the event.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me all right? Wonderful. Thank y'all for all being here. Thank you for all you do for the CGA. Let me get up the PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you for all you do. When you sign up to work an event, there are certain areas that we'll assign you to. One is a rules official. A rules official is someone who has a good knowledge of working with the rules of the game. They may not be an expert, but most of our volunteers have attended the 2 or 4 day USGA PGA Rules of Golf workshop. So most of them have a very good knowledge of the event. We also do a lot of pace of play monitoring, working with our groups to get them around in a timely fashion. Sometimes if it's a hard golf course like the number 10 at Pine Island for the Vicky DeSantis, we'll always have a spotter down there helping the players around any difficult areas, so it doesn't bog down and we can keep play moving pretty steadily. Our starter, a lot of us do serve as starters throughout at tournaments, and this is a very important role in that they get the player starting on time with the appropriate information and the tools that they'll need to get around, to make sure they have the scorecard, the rule sheet, hole location sheet, make sure we give them any last minute instructions or answer any questions. So the starter is a very, very important position. We all have done it, and we appreciate everybody's hard work. One thing is, if you're a starter, we'll cover this, make sure you read the rule sheet when you get there, because you will get questions that morning from the players. Then the score, they're the person who meets the players after the round to check the scores. It's been a little bit different this year with us using paper scorecards and then some with digital scorecards. So going through 2021, we'll be bouncing back and forth. We're still discussing exactly how we're going to do the scorecards, but for the scoring, most of the time it may be a staff person, but we may pull in some of our volunteers as well to help with that task as well. As you know, course setup is extremely important. We may ask y'all to go out and make sure to check the tees, verify the hole locations are correct before play starts that morning. Sometimes we'll have their interns to help with that as well. But course setup, main thing, we want to make sure there's no confusion about which tees are being played. Most of the time, we're going to try and pull the clubs markers off and only have our markers out there, or just have one set, whether it's ours or the clubs. But that's a very important, just to alleviate any confusion before the player gets there. If in case we do have a playoff, we may have one of you to go with them and observe the playoff and let us know who won the tiebreaker. And if we do have to evacuate the golf course for severe weather or anything like that, we're going to need everybody's help to get the players off first. And then we may go back and try to get as many spectators, if we have any, off the golf course as well. But if we have to evacuate the golf course, it is all hands on deck to grab players, bring them in, and get them to safety. A few events, we do have match play referees. These are folks who are going to have a very good working knowledge of the rules. They are appointed to make the decision in that match. So, we don't use it very often, but for North Carolina match play, South Carolina match play, North Carolina junior, South Carolina junior match play, some of those events we will have referees, mainly semifinals and finals. Before that, we usually just don't have enough to go around, but we will use a match play referees. All right, so best practices. We've got some great examples. We've got some wonderful officials in our group, and we really appreciate the standards that they have set for us to live up to. When you first off, you are representing the CGA as an authority. So we want to make sure that everyone has a good working knowledge of the rules before they get out there. We're going to do everything we can to give you all the information regarding that day's play. So you're not, no surprises. We want you to look and act in a professional manner. Players are under a lot of stress to play well, and we don't want to add to that. Okay. We're always there to help. Try not to be threatening or overbearing. We're there to find the middle ground to help them, get them through the situation, and get them on playing to the next shot. We were prefer to you to answer sir and ma'am, even if it's a 6-year-old boy. So we just try to be as professional and as courteous as possible. Always say, how can I help you? Do you need my help? Always smile. Smile just breaks a lot of tension. If you have any problems that arise, always contact the official in charge. Maybe if there are multiple staff persons, you may want to go to whoever is the official in charge. All right, so if you're a member of the committee, we are going to station you around the golf course to observe play. You should be available in the course to give rulings and assist players, whether it's taking relief from a cart path, looking for a lost ball, looking for a lost club, rangefinder. It could be a lot of different tasks. We need to be visible, but not in the way. Cart placement is very important. Off to the side, over in the trees is always a good practice. Never behind a green that someone may be hitting into, just could be a distraction. So off to the side in the trees or in the rough would always be a good practice. We do prefer that you try to drive the golf course backwards. That way you can see people as you're coming up to them and maybe not run up in the back of somebody who might be trying to play a shot. So try to drive the course backwards when possible. Again, be careful when you come around corners, trees, anything like that. We don't want to disturb any other players. So just be careful when you're driving the cart around corners. Again, when you're parking your cart, try to make sure you're out of the line of play. Off to the side in the trees is great. If you're going to park your cart, it'd be great if you park it where you basically serve as the fore caddy down in the driving zone or the landing zone, so you can help in case there's an errant shot. You're in position to go and locate it and let the player know exactly where that ball is. Again, all officials are encouraged to assist the players for search of a ball. Spectators are more than welcome to help find a golf ball. If a spectator has a golf cart, we try to ask them to leave the golf cart on the path, walk over to that area, help find the ball, and then walk back. We want to keep all spectator carts on the cart path as much as possible. Again, if you're looking for a golf ball, the time for the search begins when the player or his side has reached the area, not a spectator. If a player has hit a provisional ball, they may not want to find that first one. So you may want to, check with them. Hey, do you want us to look for this, or are you happy with the provisional? Because sometimes they don't want to find that first ball. All right. So rules officials who are not a referee to a match play, they may not be the deciding question. Okay. The player, in stroke play can get a second opinion under Rule 20. So just because you're the official at that moment, the player can ask for a second opinion. And if they do, it's no big deal. It happens all the time. We're there to make sure, we're responsible for the entire field to make sure everyone plays under the rules. There are some exceptions when try not to approach a player unless asked, but there are some exceptions when we do need to step in. Okay. If you see a player getting ready to do something, it's going to be a penalty. Definitely try to stop it. If you haven't declared a provisional for a second ball, you may want to say, hey, is this a provisional? Just to make sure we're trying to keep them from doing something before they do it. That's not in the rules. Place of pay reasons. Now it's a good exception, or place where we are going to speak to them during play. If you roll up on a group looking for a golf ball, how long has it been? And that'd be a good reason to an exception. And then if a player looks lost or unsure of what to do, we're there to step in and say, hey, can I give you your options? We can't tell them what to do, but we can explain to them all their situation they're in, explain their options, and let them choose from there. Again, if you come up on a group and they need some help, park a little bit away from the situation. That way you got plenty of room to kind of observe it when you walk in, when you walk up to it, and you're also maybe not on top of exactly what is going on. Again, if there's a ruling required, most of the time, normal circumstances, we'll have radios. Right now we're using cell phones. So if there's any question, call somebody. That's the number one rule when you're dealing with an official. If you're not sure, call somebody. Pace of play, very important, but it can be tough. Nobody likes to be called slow. So sometimes some players, don't take it the wrong way. Lots of personalities. We just want to make sure that we handle it, professionally. The pace of play guidelines will be provided by the official in charge, and it can change for format. Match play is probably going to play quicker than stroke play. Most of the time it's just 2 players, and where stroke play, you may have 4 players. So it can change based on the format of play. Know when to talk to groups about pace of play. Be proactive, okay? Ride around, you see a group, it's falling a little behind. Hey, it looks like there's a little bit of a gap in front of y'all. See if y'all can't close that gap, okay? But, don't be aggressive. Look at the factors. If there's a group on the 5th hole that's out of position, and the 6th hole, there's 2 groups waiting to tee off, that's going to kind of fix itself, okay? So you may want to mix with, hey, guys, there's a little bit of weight, y'all are a little behind. When you get up to the 6th tee, you probably should fall right in line. Make sure you don't fall out of position again. Okay. It's helpful not to talk about pace of play during the play of a hole, but sometimes you're just going to have to. But it's best if try to do it between holes. Again, a smile, a lighthearted comment, sometimes can relieve some tension. So always smile. Kill them with laughter. Keeping constant communication with the official in charge about groups that, hey, I spoke to the 8-15 group, they were a hole behind, so we can note it on our notes in case we have some issues going forward. If the group still becomes an issue, call one of the staff members. We'll come out and work with the situation. Radios, again, unfortunately, we're not using those at all right now. We've been discussing when and when not to bring them back, and we still haven't come to a decision. But radios are vital communication for officials. Try to keep the radio with you all the time with an earpiece. Try to keep conversations about exactly what's going on, and not, hey, did you see that nice new Ford truck out in the parking lot? I may go try to buy me one of those. So try to keep it to the rule or what's going on the golf course. Okay, when you call somebody, let them know who it is. Hey, Rusty, this is Jason. Where are you? Or Rusty, I'm over on the 5th hole. I've got this situation. So go ahead and identify yourself when you're calling somebody on the radio. If you hear somebody calling and you hear somebody answering, but they keep calling, maybe they might be in a bad spot where we may need to relay information from one person to another. So if you hear multiple people, but you can seem to think they're not hearing each other, step in and try to be that relay. We do have a repeater system that we use for golf courses that are really spread out. So if we're using a repeater, there will be a little bit of a delay. So you might have to hold the radio button a second or two before you start talking, because it's sending that signal, and it does take a little bit, a few seconds to repeat the signal. Be mindful of other radios out around. Usually we give the golf shop a radio, and most of the time they're going to set it on their counter without an earpiece. So it's probably not a good, so, you know, man, that got golf pro, he didn't know what's going on today. So make sure, just remember, there are more radios than just the rule staff. Again, we will continue to use cell phones where our officials for, we don't know when. So, but it seems to be working okay. We want radios back. They're a great form of communication. So hopefully we will at some point in time bring radios back out this year, but no guarantees. Some of us will go ahead and set up a group chat with our cell phones when we have a group beforehand, or maybe just that morning we'll get together before the round and share everybody's cell phone, so we're all in the same group chat. All right, a good official, one, is someone who checks their ego at the front door, okay? I'm good with the rules, but I'm not great, okay? Rusty, Zay, Maggie, Wolf, Brandon, Tom, they're great with the rules. I'm good. I'm going to ask somebody because I know my limitations, okay? Willingness to learn. We always learn something every day. You know, spend the necessary time to learn and understand the rules. You know, it's one thing to know the rules, but have a good understanding of why we have to proceed in a different way is very helpful. And again, bring a good demeanor. You know, we're there to help. We're there to support the players on the course. Okay. Again, a good rules official, someone who can speak clearly and conveying information, whether it's good or bad. You know, sometimes we're going to have to give a player some bad news and say, you know, all right, what happened on the 6th hole? This is what it's going to result in. Okay. Sometimes it's going to be a good. We've got the ball, it's inbounds. Okay. So make sure we speak to players clearly. Okay. And explain yourself and try to explain the whole situation. Again, accuracy is the key to officiating. Okay, we want to be consistent across the board if we can. If you have any questions, call somebody. If you have a situation that popped up, you may want to share it with everybody else so we can all learn from it as well. We don't want any inaccurate rulings. Okay, we've got, you know, most of the time we've got time to slow down, get all the information, discuss it, and then make a decision. Luckily, we're not like football or basketball when you got the official has to make the determine right then and there. We can take our little bit of time, make sure we get it right. Accuracy is everything. Okay, so if we see something that's getting ready to happen, and we can step in to stop it before a penalty is earned, we want to do that. Okay. If we see a ball teed up outside the teeing area, we're going to stop and have the player move that ball back into the teeing area and let them go from there. Order of play. If we know somebody's getting ready to hit out of turn, hey, hold on, Johnny's away, especially in match play. Announcing and marking procedural requirements, you know, making sure that the player does all that they have to before a penalty is earned. Okay, when cleaning is permitted, if we're giving a relief from a cart path, hey, yes, you can, or you can clean that. But some circumstances when you can't clean it, if they're lifting it for interference, yes, you can lift it, but make sure you don't clean it. And just a reminder, hey, did you return that? Did you put the ball marker back into its original position? So these are some times where we can step in and prevent penalties from happening. It's not our job to babysit players, but we make sure that we are there to assist them. Again, most players are on the golf course. They're there to have a good time, enjoy the game. Okay. However, we all have some experience with a player, a caddy, parent, or spectators who become upset, and we have to deal with that. We're bound to awkward situations are going to happen. Okay. It's just all how we handle it. Again, smiles. Okay. Nice and calm, professional manner. Those are always good practices. Any problems, call the official in charge and let them come in and handle the situation. Again, if someone becomes upset, frustrated, it's sometimes it might be just give them the rule, walk away, and then just, let the situation kind of diffuse itself. Sometimes we'll have to have thick skin. Okay. People are not always going to like some of the rulings that we give them, but as long as it's the correct ruling, there's not much more we can do after that. Give them the ruling, then just walk away. So how and when should you approach a player to inform them of a penalty situation? We try to prevent anything that we can before it happens. We want to immediately gather all the facts from parties, and it may include parents, spectators, fellow competitors, anybody like that who might have some additional information that might help us make the right decision. Consult the rule book or call someone on the radio. Having a book ready to show the player. I always like to find the rule. If I have to find the decision and have that ready to show the player in black and white. It's always easy just to let them see it for themselves instead of it's coming from us, where they can actually see it where it's written in the book. Inform the player of their options. There's a lot of options when we can do one of three things for a red penalty area. So there's some options, different penalties. So the player who give them all the options and let them determine what they want to do. And once the ball is in play, get in our cart, we head back out to the woods. Okay. So when we interact for people in the golf course, we do want to reference the rules of decision that we're using to make that. So it's done clearly, and they can, like I said, they can see it in the book or on your phone. I use my phone instead of the decisions book. Call the head rules official, let them know what's going on so they can weigh in as well, especially if you're not 100% confident. Jack is one of the best guys who calls, and even if it's the littlest rule, he'll call and say, hey, I just want to make sure I get this right. So he's been doing it, a long time, one of the best we've got, but even, he knows exactly when to ask for a second opinion just to make sure. Take advantage of Rule 20 so we can avoid pace of play issues. We keep them moving. We'll get the rule right and just take our time. Ask the players if they want to need help. Excuse me. Sometimes, again, they may not want to. As soon as you make the rule, go ahead and leave the area, leave the players, let them get back on their way. And again, keep your cart out of the line of vision for players. We don't want to argue with players, definitely. We're not looking for players who are breaching a rule. Okay, we're not out there throwing flags, but we want to be visible or so we can see some of the players, observe the players, so we can step in if we have to. We don't suggest what option is best. We give them their options and then let them make that decision. We don't approach a player with a ruling unless it's obvious that they need help or to give players clearly getting ready to do something wrong. We don't want to step in unless we absolutely have to. Don't wait until a rule has broken. A rule has been broken. If we see somebody getting ready to do something, step in and stop it. Okay. We don't make ground under repair rulings. If you see it, if you roll up on an area that's pretty severe, you may want to call the official in charge, have them come out and take a look at it. If it is bad, then we'll go ahead and mark it so we don't have that issue again. So don't make any ground under repair rulings. Call the official in charge, ask them about it, then we can go from there. All right, so sample ruling. My ball moved. Is it a one-stroke penalty? It's a one-stroke penalty, right? Well, maybe not. We've got to get a lot more information so we can make that correct rule. Where was the ball when it moved? Who was involved? Where were you when that ball moved? So just because the ball moved, it may not be a penalty, but we've got to ask questions, get all the information so we can make the correct ruling. Okay. When we make a ruling, we want to be Mr. Tufts, one of his famous quotes, be firm and positive, but take plenty of time. So again, it's not like basketball and football where we got to make a decision right then and there. We can take our time, talk about it, make sure we get it right. Okay, a referee without pants is better equipped than a referee without a rules book. Okay, great saying. One of my first rule schools that I went to, Ed Hogue, who's passed away, a great PGA rules official for many, many years. He told us, he said, if you're on the golf course and you need your rules book, you need a radio. So make sure the radio communication, asking somebody else, is vitally important. Okay. And looking up a rule in a book is not a sign of weakness. I do it all the time, pull it up on my app, look at the rule just to make sure I'm thinking correctly, because they can get confusing. Again, to me, it's very helpful if you read or show the actual rule in writing to the player with that situation. Again, if a player questions ruling, call somebody else for a second opinion. That's nothing wrong with that. Again, most often the first order of business should be determination of the facts. Find out what happened. Okay, get everyone involved to agree on the facts before announcing a ruling. Okay, we want to get all of the facts from anybody who has any information that can can help us make the correct ruling. Be wary of rules requests containing few or no facts. Again, it's misleading questions. We want to get all of the facts before we answer the question. Tell me what happened, and then just listen. Okay, always great. Just listen. Let them all go all the way through the situation, and then we can make the determination. Anybody any questions right now? Chris, any questions?
Couple of things that we just kind of go over one more time. And Bill Hagel had a question, and you started covering it after he asked it, but I just want to go over it again, that, our role as officials, really, whether it's match play or stroke play, in helping search for a golf ball. What do we want to do? We don't want to sit there with a stopwatch in the woods. Well, go ahead. You can take it from there.
Yeah. If we're an official, we want to be diving down in those bushes trying to find that golf ball. Definitely do not want to sit back on the side watching the clock until it gets to 3 minutes. We're there to help players proceed and avoid penalties, even if it's a lost ball penalty. We've got to be an active participant, just like any of the other, whether it's the players, the player, the caddy, or anyone else.
And then another just kind of question. You talked about preventative officiating, and you may just want to go over briefly. You talked about match play referees, but in that time frame of where it's match play, we're not a referee. What are we doing out there? Because we're not involved in the match, and just what we should do as officials during a match as not a referee.
Well, we're not that we're refereeing in that to me, as a referee in a match play, they make that decision. Their answer is final. we're not that involved in that one stroke play group. We're there to help the whole field play under the same rules. So to me, a match play referee has different practices because they are assigned to that one match. Whereas we may be refereeing in a stroke play, but we're affiliated with the whole field and just not that one match.
And then I had one other question come to me about if you were spotting, how is it best to communicate back to the group, if a ball is out of bounds or you want them to hit another one or one in the penalty area?
The best thing for that is going to be your arm signals. Give them the safe sign. That's good. I've learned that most of them think like that's no good, but it's safe, like in baseball. If you go and you point towards the out of bounds, okay, that means the ball's out of bounds or hit a provisional. If they go hit a provisional, or they may need to, you may have to ride back there and say, hey, I didn't exactly see it. You may want to hit a provisional. So sometimes we try to do it with arm signals, but sometimes we may have to jump in the cart and ride back up there. Okay. All right. So best practices for a starter. Yeah, the starter sets the tone. Sets the tone for the players for the day. Most of the time they may be the only official, and they're probably always, most likely, the first official that they come in contact at that day's event. So, first impressions are everything. So the starter we need the starter to be on top of it, informed, and be able to answer the questions or greet the players and handle them and getting them on the golf course in the correct way. They are there to make sure everyone starts on the time established by the committee. We do distribute scorecards and any special notes to the competitors, whether it's a local rule sheet, anything like that, cart rules, location of different areas on the golf course. We'll try to give each starters notes that the details or specific rules that they need to go over with the players before they start their round, whether it's lift, clean, and place, playing the ball down, the cart rule, whether the alternate local rule for out of bounds or ball lost is being used, stuff like that will be on the starters note, so we can go ahead and inform the players of those rules before they get started. Again, we may have to answer any rules questions. If the player's playing a practice round, the day before, and he sees in the area and he asks the starter about it, starter really needs to know, have read the rule sheet so they can answer the questions that they have from the players. Again, if you have any questions or need some assistance, just call the official in charge. One of us can come over and help and take care of the situation before they get on the golf course. Again, if you're a starter, we definitely want you to use an earpiece. We don't want the radio going off while somebody's teeing off. And most of the time, the starter is going to be pretty close to those players teeing off. So an earpiece is vital. Last year, we did ask to have the starters ask the players some questions about COVID and whether they've been infected, stuff like that. We're going to take that out this year. We're going to email that to the players in advance of their round. So the starter may just have to confirm, make sure everybody received the email, make sure nobody's feeling sick. But we won't have to go through that list of questions like we did last year. As a starter, we do not call players to the tee. It's the players responsible for being on the tee ready to play. Now, if a player is missing, call the official in charge. We may do a quick announcement, try to find players. But the starter, they're there to stay should not leave the tee to go look for a player. Call if you have to, call somebody. We'll call around, call the golf shop, try to find a player if we can. But we don't leave the tee to go look for a player. For some of our events, we are using the scoring app for the USGA tournament management, where we'll have them enter the scores after each hole for live scoring for the qualifiers and championships. Some of our junior events, we are going to be using digital scorecards, where each player will have, instead of having a paper card, they will use the app on their phone. So we'll be a little bit different from time to time, but we are, for most all of this, we'll at least ask someone in the group to do the live scoring through the scoring app. All right, if you're a starter, we do like you to show up at your assigned tee 20 minutes before the first group. That way you can review any information, make sure you've gotten everything on there. If you're a starter on number one, always check to make sure you've got the scorecards for number one. It's very easy for us to, sometimes we do get the starters boxes on the wrong tee, but always check to make sure you've got the correct scorecards in the starters box for the tee you're on. We try to maintain order, make sure the players and caddies are around and getting ready to go. We don't delay groups because the competitor is late. We'll go ahead and start. Once there's a group's time, we'll go ahead and start them. If somebody shows up, we'll get them going at a later time if it's within the rules. But we don't delay groups. We want to start each group exactly on their starting time. If their tee time is 10 o'clock, we want to start them at 10 o'clock. Main thing, we don't want them start them early, is we want to make sure we've got some spacing on the golf course and we're just not shoving them out there as fast as we can. So try to start them, the first player, exactly on their assigned starting time. If you fall behind, it happens, okay? We're not going to dock your pay, but let us know that you did, a group was behind, you know, whether it's a lost ball, player late, whatever, things happen. We'll work through it, but we may try to catch up, or we may say, no, just keep the interval, delay all the other groups to the same time. If a group does start late, go ahead and write down the actual starting time so we can go back and look for pace of play reasons. So if a group's 10 minutes behind, but they were 10 minutes late starting, well, now they're actually kind of on time. So it's important that we know the actual starting time for any groups that were late, that started late. All right, penalties. If a player arrives within 5 minutes after their assigned starting time, you know, penalty for failure to start on time, individual match play is going to be loss of hole. Stroke play is going to be 2 strokes. So if they show up late, but within 5 minutes, they can still play, but they are going to be penalized. Match play, loss of hole, stroke play, 2 strokes. Okay. After 5 minutes have elapsed from their starting time, they're still not there. Nothing we can do. The penalty is disqualification. Now there are some extreme exceptions which the official in charge will handle. As the duty as a starter, we want to make sure we've got as few golf carts on the golf course as possible. So we may have players to pair up. We don't, you know, now that we are back to double cart riders. So before, when we were doing single riders because of COVID, we had a lot of golf carts everywhere. Now we're back to people sharing carts. We only want 2 carts per group. We are going to do a considerable effort to pair everybody in foursomes for the majority of our events, just so there's no conflict about Bill getting his own cart where Steve and Ray had to share a cart. So we're going to pair them in 4s. Everybody shares a cart. Everyone, if they don't want to share the cart, they're more than welcome to walk. Everybody can walk in any CGA event. So we're not forcing them into a cart. They can share a cart. I mean, they can walk if they want to. Again, if they're not willing to condense carts, call the OIC. We'll come in and we'll take care of the situation. If there are any carts, extra carts, call the golf shop, let them know so they can come by and pick them up. All right, when is a player considered late for his tee? excuse me. So if a player's in 8 o'clock starting time, as soon as that clock turns from 7:59 and 59 seconds to 8 o'clock, if they're not on that tee ready to play, they are late. Okay. The seconds do not matter. It's when that clock turns 8 o'clock, that is their starting time. And again, after 5 minutes, when it turns from 8:04 and 59 seconds to 8:05, if they're not there, the penalty is going to be disqualification. In stroke play competition, 3 players were drawn by the committee to play at the 9 o'clock. A and B were there ready to go at their appointed time, but C didn't arrive till 9:02. However, A and B had just played, but C arrived just in time to play in the correct order. What's the ruling? Well, unfortunately, C did arrive late to the tee, even though he was the third one in the group, so he's still going to be penalized. You've got to be present in case for that 9 o'clock starting group. Now, if there's some exceptional circumstances, then that's a whole different ballgame. But if the player's not there ready, even if he's the third player, he's got to be there at 9 o'clock when that clock turns. So a group had a 9 a.m. starting time. Player gets there at 9:06. But for some reason, their group could not start on time. So it was, whether it was delayed, frost, slow play, whatever. This circumstance, the player gets lucky because the group was not able to start at 9 o'clock. They were delayed. So he is allowed to start at 9:06 with his group with no penalty. Okay. Pretty lucky. All right, if you're a starter, when you get there, we should have the stuff already there for you. You should have the starting and pairing sheets on the clipboard. You should have the official scorecards in starting time order. Sometimes they do get printed, or when we merge them, they may get out of order. So if you're missing a scorecard, you may have to flip through the next couple to see if it got misplaced or filed incorrectly. Also, I always put a couple of blank scorecards at the back of my piles. So in case there is a missing scorecard, you can grab that, grab one of the pencils and just write the player's name on that scorecard. Should have pencils now. Digital clock, which is atomic. Should have notice to the players and the local rule sheets, therefore, for you, and extra copies for each player. 4-ball, we give 1 each group. The whole location sheets, which are most of the time are integrated with the local rule sheet. We're still not supplying Sharpies, tees, sunscreen, bug spray, or rules books. We may have some hand sanitizer where the player can take a whole bottle, or we may have a big jug there where they can use that. But Sharpies, tees, sunscreen, bug spray, rules of golf books, we are not supplying those yet. We are putting pencils out mainly at junior events. Some of the other events, we're not putting those out. Most of them they're going to be on the card already. But when we do that, we'll lay them on the table where the players can pick one and won't be passing them around. So we want to give to each player their own scorecard. Well, in the last, pretty much almost the last year, we have gone ahead and exchanged scorecards just to limit the amount of interaction or passing pieces of paper between the players. But most of the time, we're going to give the player their own scorecard and they can exchange. Match play, there is no official scorecard. However, we may give you one so we can post the scores online, or maybe give one of the players the GGID where they can post the scores as they go around as well. We can give the local rule sheets, daily whole location sheets. We are back to giving out those pieces of paper when they start. For some of the events, they're still going to be posted on the app where the players can go and reference their phone for the local rules and the whole location sheets. All right, any questions on starting? No? Okay. We'll go on to scoring. All right, scorers are the official who assist in scoring play. It's very important. Then to make many discrepancies and disqualifications could arise, and we need to make sure we get it right. It is the committee's responsibility to define the scoring area. Most of the time we're going to use tents. Sometimes we'll put up rope, but it's up to us to define that area. And also when scorecards are considered returned. Now in our events, we've got a little bit of, USGA is returned when the player has left the scoring area. Our events, pre-COVID, is when we officially wrote the score up on the scoreboard. So our events were a little bit more player friendly, may give the player a little more time to realize they made a mistake, come back and get the score corrected. But right now it's when since we are dealing with COVID, it's when the scores have been verbally verified by the marker and the player. But look on the local rule sheet as we get going through the year. Hopefully we're getting out of all of this COVID stuff where we can hopefully get back to some normal rules here, probably late summer into the fall. All right, checking scores. Again, it's very important we check the scores at a US Open qualifying. Qualifiers, they're all about qualifying. They want to make sure that they're trying to do their best to get to the next level. We don't talk about cut lines. Any says, hey, what's the cut looking like? We just don't make comments about the cut line. It's easier just to stay out of it. So if you're helping with scoring, always good to ask the players when they come to hey, did anybody play a second ball? Okay, are there any ruling questions? So they can, oh yeah, on the 5th hole I did this, or yeah, John did this over on the 2nd. So we can go ahead and discuss it, make sure the scores are right before everything is agreed upon and signed. Try to get all the players to remain in the scoring area until we get all of the scores correct and inputted. Okay. We don't add scores anymore. We put them straight into computer. They're going into computer anyway. So we'll go ahead and start entering them. And that way, no math is required. We want to make sure there's 2 signatures. Make sure, check the marker, check the signature, check the player. Once they're there, then we'll do the hole by hole scores into the computer. For 4-ball, scores still must be individually identifiable. And we're responsible for the 9-hole and 18 holes totals in net events, okay, and applying the handicaps, strokes received. Any questions on scoring?
I meant to, this was in starting, but someone asked about the rule sheets and them being given to the players versus on the portal. And what we're doing with that is we will have the rule sheet, the whole locations and rule sheets on the portal, and we will also have paper copies for the players on the starting tee as well. So sorry, I didn't mention that for starting.
Yeah, so right now we're kind of doing both, whether it's digital or the traditional paper. So we'll be on the app, and we'll have some copies at the first tee as well. Anybody else?
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. So pace of play. When we're working an event, probably 75% of our time is going to be dealing with pace of play. We do want to make notes of rulings that may have taken or searches that may have taken a group a length of time and may have affected their position on the golf course. We don't want to approach a group during the play of hole to tell them, hey, to speed up, okay? Or they'll be timed. Sometimes we may have to talk to them during the play of a hole, but we try to do it between holes. If a group is not a problem, then just wave to them, tell them they're doing great, and keep on rolling, okay? Try to pay attention to many factors. If there's a lengthy ruling or a weight on a par 3, ball searches, just pay attention to many factors that could affect a group's pace of play. Try to stay with the group, but not on top of them, off to the side, give them a little bit of breathing room to help them improve their pace of play. Maybe you ride up into the landing area or where their next shot's going to be, just so you can make sure all the balls are found in a timely fashion. It's probably not good to be there holding a stopwatch, looking over a player. Okay, need to time a player. That's fine. Just try to do it discreetly. And we don't continually pester a group that's falling behind. We help them get in the back. First we're going to speak to them, and then give them a chance. But we don't sit there and just harp on them. You got to speed up, speed up, speed up. Okay. Now, pace of play, actual, the updated rules, it does specifically say under Rule 5.6 that a player has 40 seconds to play. Okay. Again, we spend the majority of our time dealing with pace of play. Several different pace of play systems in the world. We use group time and position. We don't use checkpoints. So we use where they are on the golf course and their time and how long it took them to get there. No matter what system is used, it's useful if the policy is followed and penalties are enforced. It's not good to penalize one group and not another. So make sure we do it uniformly. Again, a lot of factors play into playing times, whether it's the golfer, the design of the golf course, the starting time, whether it's 8-minute intervals, 10-minute intervals, the form of play, the course setup really has a lot to do with it. So a lot of things, a lot of factors factor into the pace of play. Okay, so starting times, huge. This one we use 10 minutes, 10-minute intervals. That's good. It gives them a nice little cushion, get them going, and we're not shoving them out there as fast as we can. Okay. Again, factors, size of the field, whether it's a twosome or our TOTS events, with caddies, or our high elite amateur event. So, a lot of things can factor into pace of play. Course setup, again, a 6,200-yard golf course is going to probably play quicker than a 7,000. Okay, that's just, this time of year, if you get a Bermuda, they're probably, that golf course may play longer time-wise than a golf course with bit. So just because the green speeds are going to be so drastic. So, and hole locations can definitely dictate pace of play. If we've had a lot of rain and we have to play lift clean in place, that's always going to add probably 5 to 15 minutes per round if we let the players lift clean in place. So that can definitely be a huge factor is the weather. Course layout, somewhere like Pinehurst number 2, where you step off the green onto the next tee, that's going to be, could play a lot quicker than somewhere like Old North State Club when you've got to leave one green and, drive your cart or walk your cart 400 yards to the next tee. So course layout and design also plays a huge factor into pace of play. What are we trying to do to improve our pace of play? One, reduce the field size. Be honest, we haven't been very good at that recently, just because of so much demand that we have had for all of our events. We're trying to maximize field size without slowing down everything. Now, we're not going to do 2.5 hours for the starting times. We may go to 2 hours instead of where we were doing 145, just to get 3 or 4 more groups of players in there. But we are trying to balance the demand that we have without bogging down the pace of play. We are trying to spread tee times out. It's no good to start groups every 8 minutes and then tell them just to get bogged down. If we can space them out a little bit, give them a little bit more time, it just seems to flow so much easier and the players have a much better experience. most of the time we may, slightly shorter. If we're playing what I call a short blue tee, we may make sure that most of the blue tees are on the front of the tee box that we're being used on each hole instead of the back. Even just that little 5 to 10, 15 yards can make a difference. So we may not, go to a shorter tee, but we may move the tee markers up on that particular area. And some of our hole locations, if we like at the North Carolina Amateur, when we're trying to get 140 some players around in a day, the first 2 days our hole locations may be on the easy side. Then once we make a cut or we get those fewer players, then we might be a little bit more aggressive with our hole locations. And we are listing the pace of play times on every player's scorecard, paper scorecard. All right, so misconception is that the time on the scorecard is their maximum allowed, or that's their time par. Actually, that's the maximum amount of time that they should play. They should play less than that. But for us to start timing, that is the maximum amount. But they should be well below that goal. Again, we want to close the gap. We want you to be behind the group in front of you. We want to be proactive. We want to help groups get around and stay in position as best they can. Again, groups that fall out of position early, it's a tough task to get them back into position. So if we can concentrate on the first 6 holes and get everybody going early, then it goes so much smoother. Whereas we wait till hole 12 or 13, it's tough by then to get them back in position. Early holes, set the pace, set the goal, and then go from there. Again, we want to have a friendly reminder to keep position with the group in front, okay? Not an official warning, but hey, there's a little bit of gap in front of you. See if you can catch up to the group in front of you. All right, what are our out of position group? A group is considered out of position if at any time during the round, group is behind their pace of play on the scorecard, the Raguzi report that we provide to the officials. Okay? Once they've fallen out of position, let's give them a friendly reminder, see if they can't pick it up. Okay? And then leave the group alone. Give them a chance, okay? You definitely want to recheck on them in a hole, maybe 2 holes, see how they're doing. Sometimes we may have to let a group play through. We never like to do that, but sometimes it is best for the whole field to let groups play through a slow one. All right, so a group is out of position if when they reach a par 3 that the hole is completely empty. The group in front of them has already finished the hole and has gone on to the next one. That group is out of position. If you reach a par 4 and the group in front of you has just left the putting green, play their strokes from the teeing area, the next hole, okay? They're out of position. Then on par 5, if the group of them is on the putting green, then they are out of position. So if there's always room in front of you to hit your shots, most likely you may be out of position. And if you reach a par 4 or par 5, which is clear of all play, you're definitely out of position. You have a script it's kind of to learn. Your group is okay on your overall pace of play. However, just friendly reminder, try to keep pace with the group in front of you and avoid any pace of play issues later in the round. Okay, and then thank them for their help.
George, it's great to see you this morning. Long-awaited results, not disappointing.
Again, lead the
Jason, sorry, can you unmute yourself? I just muted everybody.
There you go. Is that better?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, lead the group, give them a couple of holes, and then recheck them. Give them a chance to get back in position, but don't forget about them. Again, the goal is to help groups reach the point where they may not be timed and subject to penalty. That's what that says. Yeah, the group is not to reach the point where we have to start timing or start penalizing. Yeah, sometimes it does take common sense. Threesomes following a twosome. That's sometimes a threesome just can't keep up. Most likely, a lot of times, the first group of the day is going to play a lot quicker than some of the later ones. So you may have a couple of rabbits that get out and just are really playing fast. Again, be gentle, but make sure we don't and avoid confrontation. Just let them know that, hey, you are falling a little behind. We're going to keep an eye on you, but we'll give you a chance. Okay, and not all players appreciate our efforts. Okay, I'm not slow. You always pair me with slow people. Heard that a lot. Okay, if there's not a pace of play issue, no reason to mention it. Okay, wave to them, smile, keep on moving. So here's a sample of our Raguzzi that we'll provide. It's got the players' starting time, all the players' names, where they're from, and it gives their maximum pace of play where they should be after each hole. So this first hole is, they start at 8:10. They should finish the first hole, which is a par 5, 8:28. That's 18 minutes. That's, most of the time it's going to take a group of 3, 16 minutes to play a par 5. Okay, but we've given them a little bit, this is their maximum pace of play. All right, before we start, timing players, first we're going to always check their actual starting time. You may have to call the starter or the official in charge to get their actual starting time in case there are any delays. Okay, check their overall time. The position relative to the group ahead of you. Okay, if they're keeping up with the group in front of them, they're fine. Okay? Spread of the field. Are there any backups? If the next hole there's 2 groups on the par 3, that's just a little common sense. Again, leave or inform groups and start timing individuals. Okay, so we may start timing all the individuals in the group. But once we determine who the individual is that may be causing the issue, we'll only time that player. Again, player has 40 seconds, period. Okay, there's no extra time. All right, so first, if we pace of play policy, notify all players in the group that they're out of position behind the allotted pace. We let all the players know. Okay. One bad timing, once we start timing, it's going to be a warning. Second bad time is going to be a 2-stroke penalty to the player, not the group, the player that had the bad time. Third bad time is going to be a 2-stroke penalty. Fourth bad time is going to be disqualification. Okay, those are all in stroke play. For match play, we're going to notify both players in the match that are out of position behind the allotted and they're on the clock. First bad time is going to be a warning. Second, it's going to be a loss of hole penalty. Third is going to be another loss of hole penalty. And the fourth bad time is going to be disqualification. All right, so once you determine that a group is out of position, how and when should you speak to the group? Always good between holes, prior to starting a hole, after all players have played from the team, or right after they have teed off. Okay, most of the time they're right there in that little group as they've teed off, coming off the tee. So that's a good time to talk to them as well. So either before they start that tee or after they have all teed off. That way, again, you can talk to them as a group and not each individually. Okay. To let them know, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm going to go down and spot balls for you. And try to help y'all get back in position. Explain the timing procedure. Okay. Again, whether it's stroke play or match play, go ahead and let them know what's going to happen if they get a bad time. And then, ask if there are any questions. How and when should I speak to a group? Never approach the players players while they're still in the putting green. Okay. Let them putt, let them do their thing. Use good judgment. Don't be confrontational with the player. Just explain the situation to them. Stay with the group until they're back in position. Okay. Continue timing. Inform the players when they're back in position. A lot of times it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 holes at the most. Sometimes the groups, they won't get back in position. You may have to go with them the rest of the way around. But once they get back in position, let them know they're off the clock, thank them for their help, and then leave them alone. All right, any warnings, do stay with the players throughout the round. It does not start over once they regain position on the golf course. So once the player receives a warning, it stays with them for the rest of the round. When do I start timing a player? Other than on a putting green, the timing of player stroke will begin when the player has a reasonable opportunity to reach his ball. It is their turn to play and can do so without interference or distraction. Okay, off the putting green, it's pretty easy to determine when to start the clock. Time spent determining yardage or club selection, that does count and should be part of the timing process. And we need to keep of each individual's time, pre-shot time, just so we have some evidence that we can go, if we have to go back and issue any penalties, we can show them exactly the times that we got for them. Now on a putting green, there are some other factors. We should give the player some time to lift, clean, and replace their ball. Repair any ball marks on the green or their line of putt. Remove loose impediments from his line of play or putt. Now, time spent looking at the line from behind or beyond the hole should count, but they may get a little extra time on the putting green just to clean their ball, replace it, repair, stuff like that. And again, we want to always keep track of any time we time somebody, we want to keep track of that so we have some evidence in case we have to talk to the player. Officiating match play. Match play is definitely different.
Jason, we had a couple of questions come in there.
Okay, go ahead.
Just real quick, do we encourage ready golf? Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we'll have the starter mention that. What constitutes an individual player's bad time if we get to the timing point? That's the 40 seconds.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
What constitutes an individual player's bad time if we get to the timing point?
Yeah, 40 seconds. So even if it's 41 seconds, that is a bad time.
And then when we first approach a group for being out of position, is that considered their official first time warning?
I would say no. The official time warning is when you've actually informed them that they're on the clock.
And then one other question about knowing about other groups on the course. And I think the best way to answer it is communicating with the rest of the committee. We'll talk about groups that, I talked to group 12 and they were behind after 3 holes. If you could just make a little note on your pace of play sheet, and then we'll kind of keep an eye on those groups in particular. But if you have any questions about that, just communicate with the OIC and whoever else was kind of on the side of the course where they started, and we'll figure it all out before we go talk to those groups.
Yeah, if we're using radios or even cell phones as text messages, if you get a group that you're going to work with, call it in. So one, the official in charge knows, but 2, also the other officials can hear that and are notified that you're working with a specific group. And one, if it's in a text chain, we've got everybody can see it, or radio. Hopefully they can hear it.
Yep, good to go.
Okay. All right. So again, match play.
Jason, Kevin
Yes.
Finnerty had his hand up. I'm not sure if he still has a question or not, but he had put his hand up and then put it back down. Kevin, did you have a question? All right, we'll move on then.
Okay. All right, so match play consists of one side playing against another over a stipulated round set by the committee. Again, match play is determined or is played by holes, not strokes. Okay. A hole is won by a side that holds in the fewer strokes. Okay. So even though the score may be, my team made a 4 and Rusty's team made 6, I'm still just 1 up. Okay. Again, it's the terms for the match. How many holes up or tied, and so many to play. So we do have some new language that came out with the updated rules in 2019. Excuse me. General penalty for match play is loss of hole. Sometimes we'll have an observer to assist the referee. Just to decide the questions, a fact, and also to serve as kind of an observer to help find golf balls and keep the pace, to keep the match going. Observers should not attend a flag stick, stand or mark the position of the hole, or lift the ball or mark its position. Okay, the observer really to stand off and observe. Very few events, probably only when we get down to semifinals or finals of a match play event. Again, the observer's duties usually work ahead of the match, may position down in the fairway where the expected ball should come to rest, and help the referee determine the order of play. Okay. What's the referee's objective before the match? First, introduce yourself to the players and their caddies. Ask each player, if it's a seasoned veteran, somebody who's done this before, ask each player no more than, to identify the ball they're using and count their clubs. Now, if it's less experienced players, you may get into a little bit more explanation of what's going on. Make sure they're familiar with match play rules. If necessary, previous review the duties of the referee, let them know why you're there. What you can and can't do, what you're willing to do. So, you may have to explain exactly what a referee does in match play to some of the newer players to match play. But still, we want to just determine questions of fact, assure that play is in accordance with the rules, and we do want to kind of step in and prevent breaches of the rules when possible. And we definitely want to assist the players. We want to help them get around as best we can. And we always want to maintain decorum and etiquette. Make sure concessions are clear. Okay, that's way everybody understands exactly the status of the match. All right, a player may concede a match anytime prior to the start or conclusion of that match. Okay, so they can, 2 days out, Bob, I'm not showing up, the match is yours. Or they play 9 holes, I'm done, got to go. Okay. A player may concede a hole at any time prior to the start or conclusion of that hole. Okay, a player may concede the opponent's next stroke at any time, provided the opponent's ball is at rest. Okay, if it's moving, you can't concede it. Rusty and Chris, is this my section? Did I go into somebody else's?
Yep, keep going. You have a few more.
Okay.
And Brandon will take over.
Okay. All right. So the opponent is considered to have the hole with the next stroke, and the ball may be removed by either side. Hold out with his next stroke. Okay. And a concession may not be declined or withdrawn. So if somebody gives you a putt, it's done. They can't say, "Oh, never mind. I do want you to putt that." Okay. And you can't say, "No, I'll finish." Okay. Once that concession has been given, it's done. Okay, the objective for the referee, stay with the group at all times, okay? But give them space. We don't want to, while we're walking or we're with that group, we're not part of the group, okay? We want to give them some space. again, practice preventative, try to, equal to both sides, make sure we see everything that's going on, step in when we have to. Again, we want to be there to watch and see what's going on, just make sure everything's done properly. Okay, whether it's playing out of turn, outside of teeing area, anything like that, ball marker not move back. We want to be there just to make sure everyone plays without being penalized. And we can also, hear or see any concessions. If you're a referee, do not go into bunkers unless you're assisting a player for a search, okay? Don't go into the putting green unless someone calls you up there for a ruling. You may stay just off to the side of the putting surface, but we try not to go on the green unless we absolutely have to. The referee wants to decide the questions of fact, okay? Get all the information and then, find out exactly what happens, apply the rules, ensure fair play to both sides, that made the decorum and spirit of the game. Sometimes match play can get a little, one-on-one, it can get a little testy, okay? Stay sharp and prevent any breaches of rules whenever possible, okay? Be diplomatic and respectful, okay? Again, we're not choosing sides. We're there in an impartial person. A brisk or officious handling of a situation can, by upsetting the player, magnify the effect of a penalty far beyond the extent of the penalty itself. So it's all how we handle it. We want to be as diplomatic and respectful to both players, regardless of the situation. And if you need backup, you've got your observer, you probably got some more officials around, so you can always ask for help. And try to, keep conversation with the players to a minimum. Again, you're there, but you're not part of the match. You're there to, officiate the match. We do announce the individual scores after each hole and the match standing. And we try to do it loud enough for the players to hear that if they, hey, hold on, that's not right, then we can figure it out. Keep a scorecard, one for internet posting, or maybe just for our own records in case we have to go back into any discrepancies. So an example, Dustin had the honor on the first hole. So his score is always announced first, no matter the whole outcome. Okay, so player A score, player B score, then the status of the match. All right, so overall, all right, this is.
You're good. Mr. Hood time.
Any questions?
Are we good?
Yep, go ahead, Brandon.
All right, so hello everybody. My name is Brandon Hood. I'm a tournament manager here. This will be my third season with the CGA, so I'm looking forward to meeting all of you that I haven't met yet and seeing you all again. I'm just going to go over a couple rules with you guys real quickly. Rules 5 and 6. We're going to start with rule 6, which is playing a hole, which is starting and completing a hole. We're going to talk about the teeing area, the ball used in play of a hole, playing a wrong ball, which is always a very unfortunate situation, in the order of play for stroke play and match play. So when a hole starts for both match play and stroke play, stroke is made to begin the hole when the hole starts, even if the stroke is made from outside the teeing area or is canceled. So we'll talk about that. A hole is completed when a player holds out. The next stroke is conceded, or the hole result is decided. Remember, that is match play. Stroke play, the player holds out, their hole is complete. And then for 4-ball or other forms of play, you'll see rule 23 or rule 21 to help you with that. The teeing area, the ball must be played from inside the teeing area. Match play, if it's not, there's no penalty, but the opponent may cancel the stroke. And they must do so promptly and before either player makes another stroke. And a canceled stroke may not be withdrawn. So say it looks like it's going directly down the middle of the fairway and you say, I want to cancel that stroke. And then you find out it ends up behind a tree. You can't withdraw your cancellation. And if the stroke is not canceled, the ball is in play. So they get no penalty, and wherever they teed off from, wherever the ball ends up is in play. In stroke play though, the player is going to get the general penalty, and strokes made before the correction do not count. So you must correct it, and it's as if you were teeing off with your third shot. If you don't correct it, you will be disqualified if you don't correct it before the hole is complete. Or if you don't correct it before teeing off on the next hole, excuse me. The exception is the last hole of the round. You can correct it before you return your scorecard. So we're going to go over a couple special teeing area rules. They apply when starting a hole, playing again from the teeing area. So if you have to do stroke and distance, or if the ball in play comes to rest in the teeing area after making a stroke. And this is only going to apply to the teeing area that you're using to begin your hole. So say you hit it onto a different teeing area, you're playing hole 5, you hit onto hole 6, those rules are not going to apply because it's not the teeing area of the hole you were playing. So the special rules when the ball is in the teeing area. So if any part, so the teeing area is 2 club lengths from the front of the tee marker backwards, and the width of the tee markers defines the width of the teeing area. And if any part of the ball touches that imaginary space, it is considered in the teeing area. The ball may be teed up or played from the ground. So seeing tees is pretty popular. Certain conditions in the teeing area may be improved. So you might see that from time to time. I forgot who that women's senior golfer is that uses her driver to make an indentation to tee your ball up. That is allowed. Restrictions on moving tee markers. You are not allowed to move the tee marker to improve your lie if you're improving anything. Say it's in your way, you can't move it. Like the picture of this player here, he is not allowed to move the tee marker. The ball is not in play until a stroke is made. So if you haven't made a stroke at it yet, you can pick up your tee and ball and move it somewhere else in the teeing area. You're not going to be penalized for moving it. And when the ball in play lies in the teeing area, so if you make a stroke at it and you swing and a miss, that ball is in play because you made a stroke at it, but it is still in the teeing area. The ball used in play of a hole. So players normally required to play the same ball for the entirety of the hole. And you can change your ball when permitted. So substitutions, or if your ball is lost or out of bounds, you can change balls. And the substituted ball becomes in play. Correcting substitution errors. Playing an incorrectly substituted ball and penalties that will result from that. We're going to go over all of those here in a couple slides. Play of a wrong ball. And when you're allowed to play more than one ball during a hole. So a player must use a conforming ball. A player may change balls between holes without penalty. A player must hole out with the ball being played from the teeing area, except for when exceptions apply. So if your ball is lost or out of bounds, you can change golf balls. Or if a rule allows you to substitute and play a different ball. When allowed, there's no penalty. But if you incorrectly substitute a ball, you will get the general penalty. So allowed for no penalty, you're allowed to substitute a ball when taking relief, either with or without penalty. So like say ground under repair, you can substitute a ball, cart path relief, you can substitute golf ball. When you're playing again from the previous stroke, when you're doing stroke and distance, you may substitute a golf ball. When it is not allowed, when replacing your ball on the spot. So as we bring up a lot, like your special putting ball, if you hit in with a Titleist, but you have a lucky Callaway that you putt with, you're not allowed to substitute and play that lucky putting ball. So when you do substitute a ball during play of a hole, the original ball is no longer in play. The substituted ball is now the ball in play. Even if the substitution is not allowed, the substituted ball will be in play. So if it's in the wrong place, that's an example of the ball's in play. And you can always correct it under Rule 14.5. Any questions on anything so far? Nope. Chris is giving me the no, so we're going to keep rolling right along here. So we're going to go over wrong ball, very unfortunate situation. I'm sure everyone's seen it or had it happen to them before. A player must not make a stroke at a wrong ball. In match play, you're going to get a loss of hole. Stroke play, you're going to get a 2-stroke penalty. And you must correct the mistake or else you will be disqualified. But there is a very interesting exception, probably won't happen. If a player takes a stroke at a wrong ball moving in the penalty area or temporary water, so say there's a creek in the penalty area, they see a ball trickling down the creek, they take a swing at it, and it's a wrong ball, they're actually not going to be penalized for that, but they do have to correct the mistake. Order of play. So in match play, starting the first hole, order of the draw or random method. We'll start off the order of play. Starting all the other holes, whoever won the previous hole is going to have the honor. They will be teeing off first. The hole ties. So if the hole's tied, whoever had the previous honor will still be teeing off first. Or if there's a timely ruling request, if someone's requested a ruling, they may tee off randomly or agree to play out of turn when waiting for a ruling request. So order of play during the hole for match play. The ball furthest from the hole will be played first. Playing out of turn. So the opponent may cancel the stroke if the opponent plays out of turn. The member must be done promptly and before the next stroke. Or you can agree to play out of turn to save time. So if you are playing out of turn, you have to make an agreement between the two players saying, hey, I'm behind a tree, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. You can go ahead and play. By invitation or agreement, as we said. Order of play for stroke play, starting the first hole, order of the draw again, or random method. Starting on all the other holes, the lowest gross score, including handicap competitions, remember lowest gross score will be teeing off first. During the hole, again, it's going to be the ball furthest from the hole. Playing out of turn, there is not going to be a penalty. And the exception, agreeing to play out of turn is giving an advantage. So if I tell Chris, hey, I know you're further, but I want you to go first. I can see how much wind is up there. That's not allowed because I'm trying to gain an advantage by playing out of turn. Ready golf, of course, we've always talked about this. When done safely and responsibly, it is very much encouraged at CGA events, helps with pace of play tremendously if players are out there playing ready golf. So the order of play, when the ball is played from a different place than where it lies. So say required stroke and distance by location of previous stroke. So if a player has to take stroke and distance relief, he's going to be the furthest one from the hole. So he'll be playing next by order of play. So, but if they're taking relief options, you're going to use the location of the original ball to determine the order of play. So say you hit into a penalty area, but you want to take stroke and distance, wherever the original ball lies is what's going to determine the order of play, not the fact that you're going back to the tee. It's going to be based on where the original ball lies. Any questions on Rule 6? No, Chris is telling me no. So we'll keep cruising along here. Moving on to Rule 5, not Hole 5, Rule 5, which is playing the round. We're going to define what a round is, talk about breaking ties if you so choose so, practice during, before play, playing in groups, pace of play, which is always a popular subject, and stopping and resuming play. So meaning of the round is set by the committee and is no more than 18 holes, but it may be fewer, as we'll talk about, like a playoff can be 1 hole, and that's considered a round. The order of holes to be played, the committee will determine that. Starting a round. The round starts when a player makes a first stroke on his or her first hole. And your round has started. Ending a round, match play, the match is over when the result is decided. Stroke play, when the player holes out at the final hole, his match is complete. His or her match is complete. Meaning of a round, a player is playing his or her round when it starts until it ends. Except when stopped under Rule 5.7, which is stopping play, we'll go over that here in a little bit. Or when a rule refers to taking action during a round. Breaking ties, it's not required in match play or stroke play, but if you so choose to break a tie in match play, the round will be extended 1 hole at a time, and it is not a new round. With stroke play, it is considered a new round, and the committee can determine if it's going to be 3 holes, 1 hole, or if the US Open 18 holes, the committee will determine that, but it is a new round. Real briefly, we're going to talk about practice before a round, between rounds, and after the round, and then when you can and can't practice while you're playing during a hole or between holes, or while play is stopped. So practice is defined as playing a ball, testing the surface of the putting green, or rolling a ball, rubbing the surface, something like that. That's all considered practice, but this applies only to players, not caddies. So caddies, I believe, can go out there and roll balls before the round, as long as the player is not doing it. So practice on the course before or between rounds on the same day. In match play, it is permitted. You are allowed to practice before your round. But in stroke play, it is not permitted. Except on practice areas, so like the driving range or practice putting greens near the first tee, that is allowed. And the committee may reverse the faults. Practice on the course. After completing your final round, match play, of course, practice is permitted. Stroke play, a player is allowed to practice on the course after their final round for that day. So if they have 18 holes in the morning, round 1, and they want to go practice on the course after everyone's done that day, they are allowed to do so. So practice during a round. While playing a hole, practice strokes are not allowed. Between 2 holes, practice strokes are not allowed, except for these couple exceptions. So limited chipping and putting on or near the putting green of the hole just completed. So say everyone's holed out and you want to try that putt one more time that you missed, you are allowed to do so. Any practice green, if there's a temporary green or something out near the next hole, you're allowed to hit a couple practice putts there. The teeing area of the next hole. So you see that a lot of plays backed up. Players will kind of chip to the tee marker. That is allowed. That's not considered a breach. But you are not allowed to play or hit practice shots out of a bunker, and you are not allowed to delay play. Practice while play is stopped. While play is stopped, practice strokes are not allowed, except as allowed between holes. So I was talking about the chipping and putting. Anywhere outside of the golf course and anywhere else the committee allows. For match stopped by agreement and not resumed the same day, players may practice on the course without restriction before the match is resumed. So say you have a morning match play, and it's a complete monsoon, and you decide we'll just play again tomorrow, but then later that day the sun comes out, you are allowed to go out and practice. before the match resumes the next day. Any questions?
Yes, we got one about, it might have been just been the wording of how we wrote it. What does it mean that the committee may reverse the defaults? And I think we had one slide about practice, and those are the default default settings sort of, and the committee can change those and say you can practice in between rounds, or change those slightly. That's up to the committee. So it's not I think that we just wrote it poorly with the word defaults there, Bill.
Any other questions?
That was the only one.
That was it. All right. So just playing in groups, match play, a player and opponent must play together. In stroke play, the player must remain in the group set by the committee. So you can't go up to the next group and try to play with your friends. That's not allowed unless the committee approves the change either before or after it happens. Unreasonable delay, prompt pace of play. We're going to go over both of those pace of play recommendations. So unreasonable delay, players must not unreasonable delay play between holes or during a hole. Short delays are permitted though. So say you're seeking out a ruling from one of us. If you're injured or you feel sick, we're not going to call that a unreasonable delay. You are allowed to delay for that, or any other good reason that might come up. So the 3-tiered penalty statement, the first breach, you're going to get a 1-stroke penalty for unreasonable delay. Second breach, general penalty, which is 2 strokes or loss of hole. Or the third breach, you are going to be disqualified. Prompt pace of play. A round of golf is meant to be played at a prompt pace. As we all know, your pace is likely affecting how long it takes others to play. So say the first group of the day has a terrible pace, the whole rest of the day might be a little backed up. Pace of play recommendations: maintain a prompt pace throughout the round. Prepare in advance for your next stroke. So say Chris is over there hitting, I want to be ready. I want to have my yardage, practice swings, be ready so I don't spend more than 40 seconds. Be ready to play when it's your turn, as I was just referring to. When it's your turn, play no more than 40 seconds, or one of us will catch you and give you a nice bad time. But it's always encouraged to play quicker than 40 seconds. That'd be great. Really helps with pace. Playing out of turn with pace play, match play, you may agree to play out of turn. So as we talked about in Rule 6. Our stroke play, ready golf is very much encouraged with us. We're going to tell you at the first tee, we're going to tell you throughout the round, play ready golf. Let's keep it moving out there. Again, unless it gives someone an advantage, you're not allowed to do that. So the committee may adopt a pace of play policy, as Jason was referring to earlier. Optional rule to encourage and enforce prompt pace of play. Every one of you is going to be given a Raguzzi pace of play sheet to enforce pace of play. Any questions on any of that? Nope. So almost done here. Something that unfortunately happens from time to time is when we have to stop and resume play. So we're going to talk about when players may or must stop, when players must, what players must do when play is suspended, what players must do when play resumes, and lifting and replacing your ball when play resumes. So first, when players may or must stop play, suspension by the committee, all players must stop. We'll talk about details about that here in the next section. Players may agree for any reason to stop playing match play unless it delays the competitions. For example, you have the semifinal match in the morning and the finals are supposed to be in the afternoon. The semifinal match can't just say, we want to play tomorrow, that would delay the whole competition, so that is not permitted. After agreeing to stop, if one player wants to resume, play must resume. So in match play, if one player says, I think we should keep going, then they must resume. If an individual player stops because of lightning, that they are allowed to do that, or stopping when rules do not allow, that will be a disqualification. So we're going to talk about a couple examples. Immediate suspension, danger. So you'll see this a lot. Lightning, thunderstorms coming in. That'll be immediate suspension, or just a normal suspension. Darkness, or of course unplayable when it's raining heavily. So on a normal suspension, so darkness or rain, between holes, you can't tee off on another hole after we delay play. But if you've already started play of the hole, you are allowed to complete the hole. So if you can't agree whether to complete the hole or stop, match play, players must stop. Stroke play, any player can keep playing if they so choose so, as long as they have a marker to keep their score. So if two players want to go in because it's raining too heavily, they're allowed to, but if one player has a marker and they want to finish play the hole, they are allowed to do so. Exception, no penalty if committee determines failure to stop is justified. So when we resume play, where to resume, you'll just resume where you stopped if your hole was not completed at stoppage. At the next teeing area, if you just were between holes, when to resume must be at one of those two locations above, ready to play, and at the time set by the committee. So if we say we're going to resume play at 3:30, you need to be at your next tee or where you stop play from, ready to play at 3:30. So lifting ball when play stops, replacing it. So if the original ball was never lifted, but you marked it, you just put a tee down and the ball's still there, you never lifted it, and it moves during suspension, you may play it as it lies, or it may be lifted. And if you lift it, you may mark it on where you originally, or where its original spot was. And you may substitute the ball. So if the original spot is unknown or lies altered, you're just going to estimate under, I believe, Rule 14. If the ball or bar marker is moved while play is stopped, so it is optional to use a tee or something to mark the place of your ball, and you're just going to replace the original or another ball on that spot. Any questions on that? All right. I'm going to turn it over to Rusty, I believe, to cover our hard card.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so we wanted to cover everyone kind of what we have on our hard card, which would be the backside of the rule sheet. So basically at every one of our tournaments, these are going to be rules that are in effect. So what we would have on the local rule side would be more course specific local rules like where drop zones are for the course and stuff like that. But at every one of our tournaments, these are kind of the rules we'll be playing by. So we figured it would be good to cover this with you so that you all kind of knew what to expect when you get to our tournament. So first thing is our Caddy spectator cart policy. We used to have different hard cards for every event based on what the Caddy policy was. So some events were riding, some events were walking only, some carts were mandatory. So we just took all of that out. And so we refer everyone to the entry form for all of that information. And obviously when we're talking to you all as officials, when we send out that rules official email, you'll know if it's a walking only event or, you know, if it's carts mandatory or anything like that. We also, in our events, we have the list of conforming driver heads, the model local rule G1 that are required. Also the list of conforming golf balls. will be in effect in our tournaments. One thing we do not require in our CGA tournaments is the one ball rule. So USGA qualifying, we play by their rules and their hard card. So this would not apply to them. So in USGA qualifying, the one ball rule would be in effect and their hard card would be in effect. But in a CGA qualifier, CGA championship, Taiga tournament, the one ball rule is not in effect. And the new grooves rule, which is not a new grooves rule now because it's been in effect for a lot of years, but we do not have the requirement for any special groove or punch mark specifications. Until that becomes a rule of golf, we will not be adding that local rule to our tournament. So again, this is just for CGA tournaments, not talking about USGA, but I will identify a couple of differences as we go through this. Obviously, we're going to prohibit metal spikes, do not allow those. A new clarification that came out after they wrote the rules is that we're allowed to replace clubs that are significantly damaged or broken. So the rules of golf they put out say that you start with 14 clubs and those are the 14 clubs you have. You're not allowed to replace them. They realize that's probably not the best thing. So they added a new local rule that if a club is broken or significantly damaged, except in anger or abuse, then we can replace that club now. So we added that local rule. The next one here, resolving issues during the round. It is not necessarily a local rule, but on the hard card, we also add a number of items that to try to help the player and help us out. So this basically just says that you can play 2 balls in stroke play or in match play. You can request a ruling or you have to, basically make a decision and keep playing. So just try to put that there to help the players in any way we can. If they have a question about, well, I don't know what to do, hopefully they'll look at the hard card and go further. Next, and I see Bob, you had a question about out of bounds, but we have a general statement about how we define out of bounds, and this is kind of part of the definition of out of bounds, but it's the courtside points at ground level of white stakes, white lines on the ground, and any courtside edge of paved roads and beyond, even if the ball comes to rest on another part of the course. So that's kind of our default. Now on the local rule side of our rule sheets, you may see some further explanation of what the out of bounds is. Maybe the club uses property fences for out of bounds on some holes. So we would list, on holes 1 through 4, the property fence left of the hole also defines the out of bounds. Or if it were in a small case where you may cross a road and you're not going to be out of bounds. So we would specify that on the local rule side to supersede this statement. And we would say there that that the ball is not out of bounds if it crossed the road, but those would be special circumstances we would define on the local rule side there. To answer your question, Bob, I saw that popped up there. So he's asking about the alternative to stroke and distance, where you can go drop ultimately 2 club links in the fairway if you have a lost ball or ball out of bounds and not have to play under stroke and distance. In our CGA championships and qualifiers, that local rule is not in effect. So, in our championship tournament program, championship golf, you have to play under stroke and distance. Now, in our one-day tournaments where it's, a wide range of handicaps and it's more of our fun type of events, we do have that alternative to stroke and distance local rule in effect. This hard card that I'm referencing is basically covering our championships and our championship qualifiers here. So hopefully that helps you out there, Bob. To cover penalty areas, again, this is just a general statement we have that if the penalty area is only defined on one side, that basically it goes to infinity in the direction that penalty area is. If we were to mark off an area in the woods, that if they hit it in the penalty area, they don't leave that penalty area. They've stayed in there. It doesn't come out on the other side. Ball play from outside the relief area when taking back on the line relief. So again, this is a situation where the rules of golf were written a certain way. And then, once they came into practice, they realized they needed to make some adjustments. So in this limited time of taking back on the line relief, it only applies when you're taking back on the line relief. There's no penalty if you play outside the relief area within 1 club length of where it touches the ground. So, we talked about earlier yesterday that, you drop a ball in the relief area and it has to stay in the relief area. But in this very limited time when you're taking back on the line relief, you can drop the ball And if it stays within 1 club length of where the ball hits the ground, then the relief area does not apply in that particular case. Next local rule, the relief on the opposite side of a red penalty area coinciding with out of bounds. So in the old rules of golf, obviously we could go on the opposite margin of red penalty areas for extra relief options. They took that out and made them local rules. We didn't put the first local rule back in effect where you're taking opposite margin relief for any penalty in any red penalty area. We limited it only to a ball coinciding with out of bounds. So in this particular scenario, a player hits the ball and it's red next to an out of bounds, and the ball's not out of bounds, but where it crossed the red penalty area, where it last crossed the red penalty area, they have nowhere to drop because it's either water, the pond itself, or it's out of bounds on the other side. So under this particular local rule B-2.2, we're going to allow them to go on the opposite edge of the penalty area, equidistance from the hole, and drop within 2 club lengths there. Now I will say in the in certain cases, and I'm thinking about Biltmore this year for the Carolinas Amateur, we will put in model local rule B-2.1, which would allow opposite margin relief for a red penalty area, just like the old rules of golf. But we would list specific holes where that would be in effect. So we didn't want to just have carte blanche with that particular local rule and just have it on there for every course. We want to identify it where the course deems it necessary there. Ground under repair, just again, a general statement here. It's defined by white lines, but it also would include some things that are not marked, French drains, and newly trenched areas, even if not marked as such. So just try to cover any of that. We may not want to go mark every French drain and have thin little white lines everywhere. So we cover that here. Relief from seams of cut turf, and this is just a local rule to allow, again, side seam ultimately is what we're looking to give relief from here in those particular cases. Another local rule kind of dealing with dealing with ground under repair, white lined areas tying into artificially surfaced roads and cart paths. So basically, instead of marking ground under repair, 2 inches from a cart path and having 2 separate areas, this local rule allows us to just tie the white line into the cart path, and then it makes it one ultimately large cart path area. So it's one area they're taking relief from, and we don't get into a bunch of tiny little ground under repair next to a cart path in that particular case. We also define some integral objects. Just in general, again, we may define these more specifically on the local rule side, depending on the course and the scenario, but any cables, rods, or lightning kind of wires, wrappings closely attached to trees are integral objects, so no free relief. Artificial walls in penalty areas and bunkers, unless otherwise denoted there, would be considered integral objects. Also, we kind of define what temporary immovable obstructions are on our hard card so that everyone knows, and it would include greenside fans for any bent grass courses that still have them. Our starting and scoring tents would also be there. And we also put a new note in, we saw this at the US Amateur a couple years ago, that, we have a lot of signage out there on the course now, whether it's hole signs, just kind of general banners and general, CGA signage and promotional signage. We treat all of that signage as a movable obstruction, but we have in here kind of a caveat that we took from the USGA that any CGA sign that is not readily movable, so if they have a hard time trying to move it, then we transfer it into a temporary immovable obstruction. So then they would take the TIO relief, which would give them basically line of play relief from that sign or whatever type of sign it is. So just a little note there that our CGA signage kind of has a special situation where it can be movable. Let's move it if we can. If we can't, then let's just go ahead and give the player TIO relief and move on there. Wood chips and mulch or loose impediments. I don't know why this has, I think, been on every hard card I've ever seen since I started doing this about 15 years ago. But wood chips and mulch or loose impediments, I don't know why they're specially defined as such that way. But a new local rule that was a clarification put in by the USGA just this past January, or by the USGA and RNA, limiting when a stroke made from the putting green must be replayed. So again, they wrote the rules, and once they put them in practice, they realized that need to make maybe a modification here. So this is a very limited, small exception. It's really wordy here, but basically if a player makes a stroke from the putting green and the ball accidentally hits the player, the club used by the player to make the stroke, or an animal defined as a loose impediment. So that would also include worms, insects, or other small items there. The stroke counts of the ball must be played as it lies with this particular local rule. So if you go read Rule 11.1b in exception 2, the rules of golf say that anytime any of that happens, you're supposed to cancel and replay the stroke. And, I think there were times where, a player practically, they may hit a little tiny insect on that putt and don't realize that I'm supposed to cancel and replay. So to eliminate all of that, they put in this local rule, and we've adopted it as well, that for this limited time, limited times that this would happen though. But if a player makes a stroke on a putting green and it hits any of these terms here defined, they play the ball as it lies and no penalty and continue on. So new local rule that is on our hard cards there. We also define what a round is. Obviously, the definition of a round is 18 holes unless a smaller number is authorized by the committee. So in our championships, they're going to be 18 holes. Maybe occasionally if we have weather or something crazy going on, we would modify that. But in general, they're going to be 18 holes. But in our CGA qualifying rounds, we go ahead and say that those are 18 holes consisting of 2 9-hole rounds. And that basically covers us if we get a bunch of weather. And if we get at least 9 holes in, then we can count that qualifier for that day. So all those players that took off work to go play in that qualifier, we don't have to say, well, you wasted your time playing 12 holes. None of it counts. We'll count the 9 holes and go that route. Immovable obstructions close to the putting green. And this is what everyone, calls this the 2+2 local rule, where, it's meant, if you're playing a ball on the ground wanting to hit a putt or a low running shot, we're going to give you relief from sprinkler heads or other immovable obstructions that are on your line of play. And the key here is they have to be within 2 club lengths of the edge of the putting green, and your ball has to be within 2 club lengths of those obstructions. And we also, in our events, put in a special further restriction that the ball must be in the general area cut to fairway height. So if your ball's in the rough, you're not going to be entitled to use this local rule, even if the obstruction's on your line of play and it's within the 2+2 size limit. So the ball must be in the general area, cut to fairway height. And the reason is, most strokes made out of the rough, you're not going to be hitting a low running shot. It's going to be a higher shot. So we're going to keep it to the ball that's cut to fairway height, because that's more than likely when you're going to be playing that low shot on the ground there. We also have on our hard card, again, the ball deflected by a power line. We used to have this, handled on a course by course basis, but, it only applies, again, if you're going to hit a power line. And just because the power line we think is not in play, we didn't want to have this affect the player. So we just put this local rule again on our hard card. It says that if you hit a power line, the stroke does not count, and we must replay it there. We also talk about, again, our pace of play policy. We go ahead and put all of that on the hard card just to try to help everyone out, telling them 40 seconds is the amount of time you have to make the stroke. And then we talk about what the violations could be in that particular case. So just try to help the players. Again, just tell them, it's on your rule sheet. You've got it in front of you if you ever have a question about it. This last one here, a scorecard. We may have to modify this again on how we determine what we're going to do with scoring and scorecards going into the new year with COVID. But under our old rules, the scorecard is deemed returned once it is posted on the scoreboard. So we had that time limit to help the player out to make any changes. Again, in USGA qualifying, this is totally different. We define the scoring area explicitly. When the player leaves that scoring area, the scorecard is returned. So whatever we do decide to handle our scorecards and scoring, we'll let everyone know going into each tournament how that's going to be handled there. Again, relief from aeration holes. We just went ahead and put this model local rule on our hard card so that we didn't have to go and start checking, does this fairway have a couple aeration holes? Maybe they just punched a little small section that was compacted or anything on the putting green. So just go ahead and have these on our hard card. And if there are any aeration holes that a player gets their ball into, they're going to be entitled to relief based on these relief descriptions here. We also cover starting and resuming play, 1 long blast for suspension of play for a dangerous situation or suspension of play immediately. It's going to be 3 short blasts if we're suspending just because of maybe heavy rain that's not dangerous, or for darkness that in that case they can finish the hole that they're playing but not continue another one. One key there is when we suspend play in our events, we also go around and verbally tell every group, and that's just to cover if there's a golf course that's really spread out and no hole is next to each other, and we may only have 3 or 4 air horns out there. Every group may not necessarily hear the air horn. So once we blow the horn to suspend play, we then kind of organize going around, making laps around the courses until each group play is suspended. So if someone is still out there playing, they're not going to be penalized until they actually are told by us, by a committee member, that play is suspended. Just so they can say, well, I didn't hear it. And then we have to go through this whole, kind of, well, did you hear it or not kind of thing until they tell us, until we tell them verbally. They're not going to be subject to penalty there. And also the practice areas are going to be closed when we suspend play for a dangerous situation. We may open them back up a little early once the storms are out of the way to give players time to warm up. And that again is dependent on the situation, the time we have to get the round in, how long the suspension has been. Ties and playoffs, we basically just, a general statement that if a playoff is needed to determine the champion, we'll use the first tee unless we indicate otherwise. And it's not always going to be the first tee. It may be the 18th hole. It may be, hey, we can go to 16 because they have member play out there behind us. So we may just go where we have to. Players are responsible for making themselves available, but we will always try to call those players and make sure we at least notify them to get back for the playoff. In our CGA qualifying events, there are no playoffs because we take ties. So they just play 18 holes. That's do the best you can do, and that's your score. Since we take ties in all of our qualifiers, no need for a playoff there. So don't have to worry about it. And then we also list, and this is general on every hard card, when is our competition going to be final? And we say that it's when the trophy has been presented to the winner or once all scores have been approved. But we have kind of a trophy ceremony of some kind after every one of our events, even at a qualifier, when we give the medalist medal to the player there. And then in match play, once the match has been approved and posted on the scoreboard as well, that's kind of when that particular match is final there. So here are some examples of kind of course specific local rules or things that won't be on our hard card, but when you get to the course, on the other side, we would list, hey, on this particular course, we're going to have some ground under repair. So we circled some ground under repair in 5 fairway, or we may further, define it another way. Maybe it's on the putting green and we use white dots. So to kind of help, besides that general statement, we may list specifically where there's some ground under repair to try to help the players out there. We may also list obstructions if there's any question about, what are obstructions and what are not obstructions. So we may further define that, hey, these gravel walkways on these particular holes or these mulch paths or anything like that that's artificially surfaced are obstructions there. So also we may, define what liners and bunkers that would be treated as obstructions as well. We basically treat them as movable. And if they can't move them without causing damage or anything like that, then treat them as immovable. Just trying not to penalize the player when they're trying to do what's right, if they make a mistake there. And again, we're going to list maybe some mandatory relief places or no play zones on the local rule sheet that's course specific. So maybe they have flower beds they don't want people playing from, anything like that. We'll list that on the local rule side. And that's what that would look like. And again, preferred lies, that's a popular one that we would have to play if the course is particularly muddy or wet, or it just needs that. So we would put the preferred lies on our local rule side of the rule sheet. Now, I will say there may be times where, we've already printed everything for the night before the day prior, and we get to the course and they had 2 inches of rain overnight. We may not put the preferred lies on the actual local rule sheet. We would print up some kind of document, put it on our starters tables, and again, have the starters just reiterate to the players what our preferred lies local rule is. When we play preferred lies, we always give the players 1 club length to take that relief. It's not 1 scorecard length, 6 inches or anything like that. If we play preferred lies, they can place it within 1 club length. Some other general things, especially here in the sand hills, we may have to define some sandy areas that are not bunkers. that, may not even be cart paths, but we basically would treat all sandy areas as part of the general area. Fire ant hills, again, that's a dangerous animal condition. We may just put that on there just to remind players that the rules of golf cover them there. And then obviously drop zones, we would list, every drop zone that we have, we will put on the local rule sheet to help you, the official, tell the players where they are and help help the players know they can check their rule sheet for any of that. And the starter, we would also have them probably tell the groups where those drop zones are if they're extremely necessary.
You got one question to wrap it up,
Okay.
Rusty. If a no play zone is also in a penalty area, relief must be taken under Rule 17, correct?
I think that is correct. Just quickly thinking about it, I can look it up real quick. Does anyone disagree? But I think that's correct, right? I'm looking at my phone real quick here.
Yeah, so going back to the no play zones, there are different types of no play zones that we'll decide, or sometimes the course has decided before we get there. But yeah, if we have also decided that it's a penalty area, which is kind of like a swamp or something like that, you would take relief under that Rule 17. You don't have the option to go in there and play the ball.
Yeah, and you don't get free relief from the no play zone. If it's in the penalty area, you're getting out of the penalty area supersedes that no play zone. So it'd be a one-stroke penalty to get out there.
All right, anybody else? All right, we're actually going to wrap it up there. We appreciate everyone's time, as always, all the time you guys put into being great rules officials, as well as all the time you actually put in on the course. Tonight, I will send an email once today's recording is ready to go, and I'll link yesterday's in there as well. And I'll also ask you a few questions if you need a white shirt, a new name tag, anything like that. We'll get all that squared away and get that out to you as soon as we can. But looking forward to seeing everyone out there back out on the course this year. Going to be a great year. Be fun to get back to a more normal year, and hopefully fully normal by the end of the year. And let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. As always, we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
See you guys out in the course.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you all.